Do not enter. Chapter 1, Arriving in the Village, First Night. The truck rumbles down the dirt road, jostling us around in the back. I grip my rifle tight, knuckles white. None of us have said a word for miles. Sergeant Billings sits across from me, chewing on an unlit cigar. His eyes constantly scan the forest around us. He's served in North Africa and Italy. Compared to this place, he says Italy was a walk in the park. I can't imagine anything worse than the hell we witnessed there. But the look on the sergeant's face tells me this might come close. The two other fresh-faced recruits, Davies and Larson, stare wide-eyed at the passing trees. Like me, this is their first time in combat. So far it's been relatively quiet as we push into Germany. Nights spent in half-destroyed barns. Days marching through abandoned villages. But today feels different. Our destination is a remote village nestled deep in the German countryside. Intelligence reported strange lights and sounds emanating from this area the past few nights. Screams echoing through the forest's headquarters ordered us to investigate and report back. The sergeant grumbles that command is just grasping at straws, but understands his duty nonetheless. The truck lurches over a pothole and I smack my head against the cabin wall. Larson gives a weak smile. I force a grin in return, trying to hide my anxiety. My hands tremble ever so slightly in my lap. I take a deep breath of crisp autumn air, hoping to relax. All it does is remind me of brisk Saturday afternoons back home in Iowa before the war called me here instead of college. The memories make my heart ache for the simplicity of the past. I push them away, trying to focus on the unknown road ahead. The canopy of trees opens up and we pass a weathered sign welcoming us to the village. It looks decades old, the paint faded and chipped. The place hardly seems worth the effort of posting a sign. A narrow dirt lane winds between dilapidated cottages and sagging barns. Chimneys crumble as if barely standing on broken legs. Shattered windows reflect the afternoon sun like 100 eyes staring back at us. The truck rounds a bend and the battered spire of a small church comes into view. The engine grinds louder as we climb a hill towards the church. Halfway up, the truck shudders and slows. The sergeant curses under his breath. We roll to a stop in the middle of the lane. Other squads keep driving past down into the village. The sergeant hops out, rifle in hand. Larson watches him walk to the front of the truck before leaning towards me. "So what do you think's really going on here?" Larson asks under his breath. His blonde hair sticks to damp skin. I glance at Davies, but he seems lost in thought, face pale. "No clue," I reply with a shrug. Hopefully just some scarecrow the locals rigged up to mess with command. Larson forces a nervous chuckle. "Yeah, I'm sure that's it." The truck jolts, gears grinding, as the sergeant gets us moving again. We roll on in silence. My mind turns over Larson's question but finds no logical answer. Just the twisting dread that pools in my gut. The lane levels out and the battered visage of the church looms above. What few stained glass windows remain are caked with years of dirt and grime. Arching buttresses frame the building like the wings of a great beast poised to pounce. Shadows fill the empty sockets where stately saints once gazed down upon the village. The truck pulls to the side of the lane and stops, engine rumbling. Other vehicles sit nearby, already unloaded. I can see members of our company moving about the village square. A statue of an angel missing its head stands watch over the area. The sergeant hops out without a word. We grab our gear and follow suit. My boots crunch on gravel as I plant them on solid ground for the first time today. The church tower casts us in shadow. I scan the woods pressing in around us. The sun sits low above the trees, not much daylight left. A chill runs up my spine that has nothing to do with the cold wind. "Let's go, double time it boys," the sergeant calls out, already marching towards the square. We rush to catch up, rifles slapping against our backs. My senses come alive as we enter the village proper. I run my eyes over every broken window and shadowed alley, but find only discarded furniture and other mundane signs of long abandonment. The place looks completely deserted. Then I hear it. Just on the edge of perception. A whimper. Like a dog that's hurt or lost. It echoes from somewhere nearby, barely audible over the wind. I pause, glancing around for the source. But see only my squad mates assembling gear and chatting idly. No one seems to have noticed the sound. I shake my head and keep walking. Just my mind playing tricks on me. The square opens up before us, the obelisk of a dry fountain at its center. Sergeant Billings confers with another grizzled non-com I don't recognize. Members of my company mill about, settling in for the coming night. Bedrolls line the cracking flagstones. A faint smell of coffee hangs on the air from a burner near the fountain. "Wilson, Davies, Larson, over here." I turn to see Corporal Evans waving us towards a section of the square. He points at a crumbling cottage set back from the others. "You boys are in that one tonight," Evans says. "Get settled before it gets dark." We stash our gear just inside the threshold. The roof sags in the middle and a thick layer of leaves blankets the floor, but it will do for the night. There are no doors left, so Evans stations a rotating watch at the opening. As darkness falls, he takes first shift with Davies standing post just outside. I clear damp leaves from the corner and lay out my bedroll and blanket. The autumn chill seeps up from the stones beneath me. I shiver and pull my coat tighter. Sleep will be hard to come by tonight. Thoughts of what might await in this village tomorrow keep my mind racing. Larson tosses and turns nearby, rustling his bedroll. I know he feels the same way. Neither of us have seen real action yet. Anticipation wars with fear in my gut. I need to prove that I can handle myself like the rest of the squad. That the long weeks of basic training and drills weren't for nothing. Maybe this mission will be my chance. Or it might be my last. I rub my eyes and turn over again, the cold ground pressing into my hip. Exhaustion finally starts to overtake my anxiety. As I drift off, the whimper sounds again at the edge of hearing. This time it almost seems like a human voice. Begging. Then it fades away, leaving me in restless darkness. Chapter 2, Investigating the Woods and Bunker Entrance. "On your feet, ladies." Sergeant Billings roars. "Time to earn those stripes." Bleary-eyed, I sit up on my bedroll as weak dawn light filters through cracks in the cottage walls. My breath mists in the frigid air. Muscles ache from shivering all night on the hard ground. I pull on my boots with numb fingers. Larson yawns massively beside me, exhausted bags under his eyes. The sergeant stands in the open doorway silhouetted against the morning sun. Step to it. Daylight's wasting. Outside, the company hurries to break down camp. The scent of coffee and cigarettes drifts on the breeze. My stomach rumbles, but food will have to wait. Sergeant Billing wants us ready to move out in 15 mics. I splash freezing water on my face from my canteen and rinse my mouth. The shock helps shake away the grogginess. Nearby, Davies relieves himself against the side of a barn. I shoulder my pack and rifle, then go to join formation. Frost rimes the dead grass of the village square. Our breaths cloud the air as the company assembles around the dry fountain. I stamp my feet trying to generate warmth. Sergeants stalk through the ranks, double-checking gear and ammunition. Weapons are locked and loaded. Everyone knows the drill. The sun crests over the trees as the last few soldiers rush into position. Its weak light glints off helmets and rifle barrels but holds little heat. The company lieutenant steps up on the lip of the fountain. "Listen up," he calls out. His voice echoes slightly in the square. "HQ wants us to sweep the forest north of the village. Teams reported unknown sounds emanating from that area last night." Murmurs ripple through the crowd. I catch a glimpse of Larson's wide eyes before he turns away. "I know you grunts just got settled in," the lieutenant continues. "But we've got a job to do. Command wants answers. Staff Sergeant McMillan's platoon will take point. Maintain tight spacing and keep your eyes peeled. Report anything unusual immediately." He hops down from the fountain and stalks over to confer with Sergeant Billings and the other squad leaders. After a moment they start calling out assignments. Our squad joins Platoon C near the rear for support. Once everyone is in position, the lieutenant gives the signal to move out. Frost crackles under hundreds of marching feet as we leave the village behind. We pass ruined barns and derelict cottages slowly succumbing to the encroaching forest. Soon we reach the tree line and the temperature drops even more in the shadows. Our breath puffs like steam locomotives. Platoon C enters first, the rest of us following at intervals. Branches clutch at my uniform and pack. Old leaves crunch underfoot. The morning sun barely penetrates the needled canopy high above. It feels like stepping into a great cavern, the light growing dimmer with every step. We press deeper into the sea of trunks and underbrush. Animals scurry away at our approach, but otherwise the forest is still. The only sounds are the occasional bird call and the rhythmic tramp of boots. Visibility drops to just a few yards between the trees. Every nerve buzzes, senses straining for any sign of life. But so far the woods appear untouched, primeval. As if man has never set foot here. Glancing around at the impassive trunks pressing close, it's easy to feel like insignificant intruders in an ancient world. This forest existed long before us and will long outlast our brief lifespans. A muffled shout sounds from up ahead, barely audible. The platoon halts, rifles rising in unison. Silence returns, even the birds now quiet. A minute passes, two. Still nothing. Just as the lieutenant motions for us to proceed, another yell splits the air followed by a sharp volley of gunfire. Chaos erupts. Soldiers dive for cover, routines forgotten as panic takes over. Sergeants bark contradictory orders. The men look around frantically, rifles sweeping left and right. Larson crouches behind a elm, white as a ghost. Davy's hands tremble on his gun. "Hold positions," bellows the lieutenant. "Everyone stay down and shut up." The forest goes quiet again except for panicked breathing and the pounding of blood in my ears. Fear floods my body with adrenaline. What the hell is happening up there? Long minutes pass in tense silence. My knees ache from crouching against a tree trunk. Just as I'm about to risk a peek around the elm, footsteps crunch through the underbrush. I swivel my rifle towards the sound. A soldier stumbles into view, uniform ripped and spattered with blood. His wide eyes dart around in shock. It takes me a moment to recognize Sergeant McMillan from the lead platoon. He leans against a trunk, chest heaving, trying to speak but no words come out. Medics rush to his side. Now others emerge slowly from the trees ahead, also in various states of shock. Some look wounded, others appear unhurt. They gather around McMillan, voices rising in agitation as they recount what happened. But their words are lost into the surrounding woods. Eventually McMillan regains some composure. The lieutenant pulls him aside to confer privately. After a brief exchange, he turns to deliver orders to the assembled troops. "Platoon C will hold this position," he announces. "Everyone else, on me. We're pushing forward." Our Our platoon climbs cautiously to our feet and regroups. As we start to move past Macmillan's shaken men, snippets of their account reach my ears. Came out of nowhere. Just started ripping into Jones before. Barely got off a shot before they. Their words turn my blood to ice. Davies glances at me with naked fear on his face. Clearly we all wonder the same thing, what awaited up ahead. And did we really want to find out? But orders are orders. And so we march on into the unknown. Deeper into the gloom we push. The morning sun barely penetrates this far. Shadows swallow the forest floor, hiding untold dangers. Fear sits like a rock in my gut. But I force myself to keep pace, gripping my rifle with slick palms. Suddenly Sergeant Billings halts and points. Just visible ahead, a dark opening yawns in the base of a rocky outcropping. Man-made stone borders edge the circular void. It almost looks like a giant mouth waiting to swallow us whole. Billings whispers something to the lieutenant, who then signals the platoon to spread out and approach. We creep through the underbrush towards that ominous cave entrance. The blackness inside seems to suck in all light. I shudder to imagine what might dwell in that abyss. When we get within 20 yards, Billings orders us to hold position. He picks 3 men to investigate closer while the rest of us cover. They inch forward using the rocky outcrop for cover. Reaching the entrance, they peer cautiously inside. One man calls out, "Clear." His voice echoes from the cave walls. Billings signals the all clear. We close in, weapons ready in case of trouble. Peering down into that darkness, I feel like a mouse entering a lion's den. Every instinct screams to turn and run. But I force my feet to carry me forward with the others. Inside, the temperature plummets. Our lights reveal a brick tunnel sloping down into the earth. Nazi swastikas and iron crosses mark the walls, interspersed with ancient Teutonic runes. The lieutenant surmises this must connect to some kind of underground bunker or lair built by the Third Reich. Looks like we found the source of those noises after all, Billings rasps. He turns to the lieutenant. "Orders, sir." The lieutenant studies the ominous tunnel for a long moment. "Form up teams," he finally says. "We're going in." Chapter 3, Entering the Bunker, Rooms and Corridors. The beam of my flashlight quivers across rough brickwork and thick spiderwebs. Every step echoes down the cramped corridor, announcing our presence to anything lurking ahead. The underground chill eats through my uniform and a tense knot grips my gut. But I force myself to keep putting one foot in front of the other, descending into the void. Our squad follows Sergeant Billings at an interval of 10 feet, safeties are off, fingers resting on triggers. The tunnel seems to absorb the light from our torches rather than illuminate it. Darkness encroaches just at the edge of our vision, barely held at bay. Shadows dance on ancient cobwebs covering the walls, full of unseen threats. The deeper we go, the more it feels like we are intruding somewhere we were never meant to tread. These tunnels must run for miles in a great labyrinth beneath the forest. Who knows what nightmares the Nazis created down here while the war raged overhead. But command ordered a thorough search, so down we go into the belly of the beast. A faint shuffling noise echoes up from the gloom. Billings pauses, fist raised. We all freeze, ears straining. The sound comes again, barely audible over the dripping of water somewhere below. It's impossible to pinpoint the origin in these twisting corridors. Billings signals us forward again, even slower. The shuffling grows intermittent but stays just at the edge of hearing as we descend. Like some maimed creature is stalking us through adjoining passages. Stalking, or herding us ever onward into the bowels of the earth. I try to steady my breathing despite prickling dread. The incline levels off and we emerge into a nexus of several tunnels branching in different directions. Across the way, other squads arrive from adjunct passages, also hearing noises. We're deep under the earth now in a maze with countless possible routes. But no signs yet of life, human or otherwise. Just cobwebs, strange symbols, and the shuffling always a room away. Jackson. Take Davies, Larson and Wilson and check the east tunnel, Billings directs. Stay sharp and report back at first contact. Yes, sir, Corporal Jackson replies with a crisp nod. He waves us over. Let's go, boys. We follow Jackson down the right-hand passage as Billings leads the remaining men elsewhere. Larson brushes against my shoulder, pressing closer than necessary. I don't blame him. Each turn and tunnel looks the same in the light of our torches. And that damn shuffling keeps up just ahead, leading us like horses with carrots on strings. Where the hell is it coming from? Larson hisses through chattering teeth. No clue, stay calm, Jackson whispers back. He puts a finger to his lips and keeps moving. We proceed in tense silence except for the echoes of our footfalls and the ever-present scuttling ahead. Soon we come to a widened corridor lined with iron doors on both sides. Cells or chambers of some kind. Jackson motions for us to cover both directions as he steps cautiously forward. He stops outside the first door on the left and yanks it open, rifle barrel thrusting within. Pitch darkness greets us. Jackson probes with his light but reveals only a small empty chamber cut into the rock. Manacles hang from one wall along with ominous stains below. My stomach turns imagining who might have been chained in here and why. We proceed down the hallway checking each cell as we go. All stand empty and cold, most stripped bare. A few contain rudimentary cots or broken chairs, hints of their former inhabitants. The shuffling fades away, leaving just an oppressive silence weighing down the stagnant air. Even our footsteps and breathing seem muted in the gloom. At the end of the corridor, we find a solid metal door barricaded from our side by a slatted wood brace. Muffled sounds filter through the gap at the bottom. Scraping. Thumping. Voices raised in anger or excitement. Before we can react, a heavy impact shutters the door in its frame. We leap back, rifles aimed and ready. The voices continue their frenetic shouting as more crashes emanate from beyond the barrier. They seem to be fighting each other, or destroying the contents of the room. Jackson glances back at us. Recommend we do not engage until backup arrives, he says. We nod vigorously in agreement. Let's get back to the others, Jackson continues. Double time it, boys. We rush back through the cell block, no longer caring about stealth. The madness behind that door motivates us to a quick exit. Jackson practically sprints ahead as our boots pound the cold stone floor. We take turns sharper than is safe, rifles clutched tight to our chests. Skidding back into the nexus, we find Sergeant Billings and the other men waiting. They straighten at our hurried arrival. Jackson snaps a salute as he catches his breath. Sir, hostiles confirmed down the eastern passage, he gasps out. Unknown number, barricaded behind the door. We could hear them but did not engage. Billings' craggy face splits into a fierce grin. Well done, lads. We'll handle it from here. He turns to the larger group. Jorgensen, Hawthorne, take fire teams 2 and 3 back there. Breach and clear, we'll be right behind you. As the assault team hustles down the indicated tunnel, Billings looks us over. Get your wind back, he says. Then lead us in. My heart hammers against my ribs. I try to control my breathing and grip my rifle stock to hide the trembling. This will be it, first real combat. My gut churns, unsure if it's more anticipation or fear. But like it or not, our trial is at hand. I steel my nerves and get ready to follow orders into the dark. Soon the team is back, it's time. We retrace our steps through the cell block, past rusted manacles and stained walls, towards the unknown behind that door. My eyes strain for any sign of movement in the shadowy corridor. But all remains still. Approaching the barricaded door, we find it now partially broken in. Muted light spills from the ruptured frame along with the continued sounds of a scuffle within. Jorgensen nods to Billings, they are ready. Billings looks to Jackson. Corporal, if you would do the honors. Jackson steps past the shattered door, combat shotgun ready. With one swift kick he knocks aside the slatted brace, opening the way. As soon as the path is clear, the assault team surges through. Weapons hot. They fan out around the room beyond like a well-oiled machine. We rush in next to support, myself right on Jackson's heels. Time seems to slow, senses hyper-focused. I'm ready for anything. But what awaits inside that hidden chamber still manages to catch me utterly unprepared. Chapter 4, Missing Soldiers, Sweeping Bunker. What in God's name? The soldier beside me breathes. The hidden chamber is some sort of laboratory. Steel tables bear twisted human forms under blood-spattered sheets. Glass jars hold malformed body parts suspended in yellow fluid. The concrete walls are scrawled with frantic calculations and diagrams unlike any science I've seen. And the center of the room is a crisscross of gouges clawed several inches into the very stone. Two soldiers lie face down near the epicenter in spreading pools of dark blood. Caught by surprise during the initial breach. But that's not what draws my eye. Above their bodies, a gaping hole has been smashed straight through the opposite wall. Jagged chunks of concrete and tangles of severed wire dangle from the edges. It's nearly large enough to drive our truck through. Beyond lies only impenetrable darkness. The assault team and Billings stand poised for contact near the bodies. But nothing stirs inside the chamber now except a faint dripping. My rifle lowers slightly as I try to make sense of the scene. What could have created such carnage and then vanished into thin air? The rest of the squads file in behind us, muttering oaths at the charnel sight. They take up covering positions, weapons aimed warily at that shadowed rupture. Its edges almost seem to ripple and writhe like a living thing. Billings stalks over and picks up a discarded combat vest. His jaw tightens as he turns it over in calloused hands. Those were McKinney and Juarez on point, he growls. Walked right into, whatever the hell did this. He drops the shredded vest and nudges Juarez's body with his boot. The soldier's back is flayed open from neck to hips by 4 massive slashing wounds. His face is frozen in a twisted scream. McKinney lies prone and headless nearby, the helmet rolled away still dripping. Bile rises in my throat. We need to sweep the adjacent rooms, Billings continues, steel in his gravelly voice. That thing is still nearby. We find it and end it before it takes more of us. The lieutenant kneels to examine the bodies. Agreed. Proceed with caution, we have no idea what we're dealing with. Billings organizes the squads into search teams. He directs Larson, Davies, and I to join him clearing the rooms ahead. Fear wars with anger and disgust within me. What kind of hell experiments went on in this bunker? Clearly something that should have remained buried. We approach the jagged breach in the wall, shadows seeming to writhe just beyond the threshold. Billings and Davies take point through the twisted slit, Larson and I follow close behind. The beam of my light illuminates a short hall ending in another solid door. The other teams fan out down adjacent passages, tense voices echoing through the cold corridors. Stepping past that door, we emerge into a 2-level chamber ringed with rusted railings. A metal catwalk circles the perimeter, stairs to the lower level long since collapsed. Pushed against one wall are several bulky shapes shrouded beneath stained canvas. Some type of vehicles perhaps, though I've never seen their like. They lurk like slumbering beasts under those coverings. Our lights flash over heavy chains, dark stains on the floor, and strange scratches along the walls. But no immediate threats present themselves. Larson relaxes slightly, rifle dipping. I nudge him to stay alert as we make our way around the catwalk. Davies calls out from the far side of the room. He stands before a metal security door hanging askew from a single broken hinge. Beyond lies a rectangular chamber filled with rows of long tables under hanging fluorescent lamps, now dark. Some type of lab or research room. Shattered glass and splintered instruments litter the floor amidst scattered pages scrawled with diagrams and German text. We step inside, glass crunching under our boots. Misted breath fills the chill air. Gooseflesh prickles my neck at the unnatural stillness. These tables clearly once held men, but now only scraps of cloth and dark stains remain. I shudder to think what happened in this awful place. Spread out, see if you can find any clues, Billings directs. He begins rifling through the wreckage, tossing aside debris and papers. I approach one of the tables, rusted shackles hanging open at its sides. Bending down reveals scratches gouged into the metal legs. Long furrows left by desperate fingers trying to escape. Bile rises in my throat. I turn away quickly, stomach churning. Across the room, Larson examines a wall chart labeled with anatomical diagrams. His face goes pale and he backs away. I start towards him, then notice the ventilation grate torn from the wall behind. Jagged metal edges reveal a dark duct just large enough to crawl through. Billings sees it too. He pulls a flare from his kit and snaps it alight. The crimson glow illuminates a meter or so down the air shaft before the shadows swallow it. No sounds or movements within. But given the state of this room, it seems certain that's how the creature escaped after slaughtering McKinney and Juarez. It must still be lurking somewhere in this warren of tunnels. Leaving Davies on watch, the rest of us hurry back to the central chamber to report our findings. Billings advises the lieutenant that we are likely dealing with a nocturnal ambush predator using the ventilation system to travel unseen. He recommends systematic night hunt procedures and warn the other teams. The lieutenant agrees and dispatches runners to relay the new orders. We double-check weapons and gear awaiting nightfall and the hunt ahead. Flares and gas lanterns are prepared. It seems sleep will have to wait until we find and destroy the monstrosity before it claims any more of us. Watch rotations are organized. As the appointed hour approaches, the squads gather back in the main chamber. Fear and anger mix in the air, driving back exhaustion. These men want vengeance. The lieutenant gives a final motivational speech, saying we won't rest until we send this thing straight to hell. Bold words considering none of us know what we truly face. But it rallies the men's spirits. With the bunker as dark and quiet as it will get, we break into hunting parties of 4 men each. Orders are light and noise discipline at all times. And above all, avoid separating from the group. Each party takes one direction down the branching tunnels to sweep methodically. Ours heads into the western passage with Billings on point. My heart hammers against my ribs as I stare down into that subterranean dark. It feels like pure madness marching back into the bowels of this place. But I grip my rifle and follow the man in front as ordered. And pray this won't be my final night on Earth. Chapter 5, Discovering the Lab Wing. The oily smoke of our lantern pools against the ceiling, casting phantasmal shadows that seem to creep and sway with minds of their own. They could be hiding any manner of horrors just at the edge of light. But endless dark corridors stretch ahead revealing nothing, our footsteps the only sound. We've been searching for hours without a sign of life in these tunnels. No sight or sound of the creature since the attack. The deeper we delve through identical passages, the more I fear becoming lost in this subterranean maze. And yet still we find nothing. Just silent rooms coated in dust, more strange symbols, and the growing sense of being in some forgotten catacomb beneath the earth. Traversing a lengthy corridor, we come across a derelict room partitioned into small pens by chain link fencing. Each contains a bare cot, chains bolted to the walls, and a drainage grate in the floor. What hellish acts happened here I can only imagine. I hurry past, skin crawling. This entire bunker seems steeped in pain and madness. The next chamber looks like a crude infirmary, rusted bed frames still bearing stained mattresses. A desk in the corner holds scattered medical instruments and several tarnished clipboards. Larson picks one up, leafing through moldy pages filled with German notes and anatomical sketches. His hands tremble and he quickly puts it down. We move on in strained silence. 2 more hours bring no further revelations. The debilitating boredom of the search almost seems worse than another attack. My eyes ache from squinting into endless shadow. The tunnels appear completely abandoned, whatever evil once dwelled here long gone. But orders remain to continue the sweep. Until finally, we emerge into a nexus unlike any section found before. The brickwork transitions to sterile white tiles on the walls and floors. Bright electric lights flicker overhead, revealing a wide hallway extending ahead. After interminable gloom, the illumination is nearly blinding. This section seems very much still active. I shield my eyes and signal the others to halt. "This must be the laboratory wing," Billings rasps. "Stay sharp and wait for my order." He creeps forward, shotgun ready. We follow tight behind, eyes darting about for any movement. Closed doors line the hallway, placards labeling operating theaters, testing facilities, specimen storage and more in German. Mosaic tiles depicting ancient medical motifs decorate the walls. We reach an intersection and pause. Faint shuffling sounds drift from the left fork, as of something being softly dragged. The hairs on my neck stand up. Could our prey have retreated here to its lair? Billing glances back at us, face lit by a fierce hunger. He flashes 2 fingers twice, on my signal. He peeks around the corner, then whips back, motioning us forward. We rush ahead in perfect synchrony, weapons sweeping the hall. About 20 feet down, a metal door stands slightly ajar, more strange sounds emanating from within. Billings creeps forward and gently nudges it open with the shotgun barrel. He points 2 fingers inside. Now. We storm through in a well-drilled maneuver, covering all angles of the room in an instant. It appears to be a surgical theater of some kind. A large spotlight hangs over a stained operating table. Cabinets and trays of ominous instruments line the walls. At the far end, a hunched figure in a filthy lab coat starts and spins around at our entrance. "Nicht Skiasen," the man cries, hands raised as if to shield from bullets which never come. Wild, sunken eyes dart about behind cracked glasses. His face looks gaunt almost to the point of starvation. Clearly this is no monster, just a lone survivor scarred by unknowable terrors. "Are you the doctor?" Billings asks in forced German. The man's mouth works silently, then he gives a small nod. "What is this place?" Billings presses, gesturing around the operating theater. "What were you doing here?" The doctor sinks down on a stool, head in trembling hands. When he finally speaks, the words come toneless and broken. "Such hubris, we thought ourselves gods, but unleashed only damnation." He looks back up at us with hollow eyes. "Leave this place. There is nothing for you here but death." Billings glances around at the guts of this facility laid bare. "Our mission is to cleanse this evil. The Führer's legacy dies today." The doctor shakes his head slowly like a mourner at a graveside. You do not understand what you face. But very soon you will. He drops his face back into his hands. God help us all. A noise echoes from the hallway outside, approaching footsteps, but something not quite right about the cadence. Billings motions us out fast. We rush from the operating theater, weapons ready for contact. The doctor's cryptic mumblings echo in my mind as I scan the tiled corridor ahead. What fresh nightmare will we face next in this house of horrors? What has that poor broken man witnessed? I steady my nerves and prepare to confront the evil lurking in this bunker once and for all. Chapter 6: Confronting Schuyler's Creation. The footsteps stagger closer from an adjoining hallway, accompanied by an arrhythmic rasping. Each hair stands on end as we aim into the gloom. This could be it, the creature itself, come for us at last. My rifle quivers slightly as a figure lurches into view. I nearly pull the trigger before realizing it's Corporal Hawthorne, clutching his blood-soaked neck. Face pale from shock and loss of blood, uniform ripped to tatters. He stumbles towards us, straining to speak. Ambush, south wing, he forces out, before collapsing into Billings' arms. Two other soldiers emerge supporting a semi-conscious teammate. They bear similar wounds, flesh savagely torn by inhuman fangs. We rush to assist them while Hawthorne gasps his account. It came from nowhere, like a blur of claws and teeth. Took Jenkins down before we could even fire a shot. We emptied full clips at it. Just kept coming. His head lolls back, barely clinging to consciousness. Billings barks orders. Get these men to the infirmary stat. He turns to me as the others hustle off deeper into the medical wing. Stay alert, that thing could be anywhere. Priority is getting everyone still alive out of here. I nod, gripping my rifle with slick palms. We follow swiftly on the footsteps of the wounded, eyes darting about at every sound. The electric lights flicker and buzz overhead, threatening to plunge us back into nightmare blackness. Each waiting room and specimen lab we pass holds untold horrors barely hidden by sterile facades. Reaching the infirmary, we find cots prepared and other survivors gathered, the remnants of teams savaged by the creature's whirlwind attacks across the facility. The medics work urgently to stabilize the wounded despite depleted supplies. The moans of men in extremis provide a chilling soundtrack. Billings confers briefly with the LT hunched over a makeshift command post. His face tightens as the status reports come in. We helped evacuate 14 men so far. At least 9 are confirmed dead. Others still missing. And the creature roams freely through the bunker's depths. Sergeant, form up who's left and sweep for survivors on our way out, orders the LT. We're getting the hell out of here while we still can. Billings assembles me along with Privates Carlson and Boyd. The 4 of us creep back into the blood-spattered lab corridors, leapfrogging in textbook room-clearing maneuvers despite our terror. Lights flicker erratically, plunging us from bright sterile tile to yawning voids. The creature could be lurking anywhere with the advantage of night vision and hearing. But we have our orders: evacuate any living soul not lucky enough to already be dead. We find Privates Hayes and Quinn barricaded inside a storage closet, Hayes clutching a tattered leg dripping red. He cries out in relief as we help him up and start back towards the infirmary, moving as fast as their injuries allow. The air hangs heavy with the coppery tang of blood. Smears on the walls and floor mark where others were not so fortunate. We try not to imagine their final moments in this house of pain. Step by step we struggle closer to escape from the underground nightmare. Rounding a corner, we hear a choking wail cut violently short. Exchanging grim looks, we set the wounded down and proceed towards the sound. Inside a testing room, the remains of Private Madison slump across a desk in a spreading crimson pool. Bits of organs fleck the walls. An air vent grill lies twisted on the floor, the creature's escape route. Bile rises in my throat. No time for shock. We must keep moving. Focused only on reaching the exit with our battered comrades, we push through these animalistic halls. Any veneer of scientific rationality has been peeled away, revealing the bestial evil festering in this place. It lurks behind every door, above every ceiling, hungry for slaughter. Sane men would flee screaming. But duty demands otherwise. Step by tortuous step we near where the central chamber should lie. Carlson takes point, rifle sweeping side to side. I strain all senses for the slightest hint of movement. The wounded lean heavily on Boyd and I, groaning through clenched teeth. The lights begin to strengthen as we approach brighter inhabited sections. Hope quickens our pace. We turn one final corner and there ahead lies the nexus before the winding stairs upwards to daylight. The taste of freedom fills my lungs. I almost cry out in joy. Then Carlson's head whips sideways, neck erupting in a crimson geyser. His body crumples against the wall. Before we can even register our horror, the creature is among us. A tempest of claws and fangs, shredding uniforms and flesh with savage fury. Boyd screams as a claw opens his belly, spilling innards onto the floor. I fire blindly towards the blur, yelling madly. The beast pivots, focusing on me for an instant. Matted fur caked with blood. Jagged yellow fangs in a deformed muzzle. Eyes of primal hunger burning into mine. Something between wolf, boar, and man, but infinitely more vicious. Time slows to a crawl. This is how I die, torn apart in a nightmare. Then its head whips away. A new sound echoes from the central chamber, growing louder. The bellow of a diesel engine. The creature lets loose an inhuman howl and vanishes into the shadows. But the hunt is far from done. Now we come for it. I stare down at Boyd's ravaged body, then back at the empty hall. My hands tremble, whether from fear or fury I can't say. I clench my rifle and roar curses into that darkness, blood pounding in my ears. The other wounded soldiers stare wild-eyed from the floor, faces bloodless. We need to move. Now. I haul the shell-shocked men to their feet. Hayes' shredded leg barely holds his weight, but he soldiers on. Step by agonizing step we make for the central hub, the sounds of engines growing stronger. I glance back constantly, expecting the demon to reappear for a final strike. Staggering into the chamber we see the blessed sight of half-tracks and transport trucks arranged in a protective circle around the remaining squad. Diesel fumes waft through the cold air. Men rush forward to take the wounded from us, bearing them to the waiting vehicles. Medic or body bag, it's all beyond our control now. Sergeant Billings stands with the lieutenant briefing the new arrivals. He spies us and stalks over, brow furrowed. I snap a salute, still gasping for breath. His eyes bore into mine, seeing the raw trauma there. "Son, are you able to continue the mission?" he asks pointedly. Every fiber of my being screams to get the hell out of this nightmare. But my response surprises even me. "Yes, Sergeant," I hear myself say through clenched teeth. "Let's finish this." Billings searches my face a moment longer, then nods. "We're going hunting," he says, voice cold iron. He leads me back to the ranking officers crowded around a field map. Gathered squads lock and load ammo boxes, faces hardened beneath grime and blood. These men have been blooded now. The hunted becomes the hunter. The LT outlines a coordinated sweep pattern to drive the creature from its lair toward the central chamber and our massed firepower. Kill teams will block escape routes as recon units flush it into the open. This ends now. I mount up with Billings' squad in our half-track, bone-weary but nerves wired. Our driver revs the throaty diesel engine, headlamps spearing into the gloom ahead. The vehicle lurches forward with a squeal of gears. Idling trucks follow behind as we delve once more onto the breach. Chapter 7: Attempting Escape. Tires rumble beneath us, diesel fumes choking the frigid air. Every man, every gun now focused on a singular purpose: exterminate the evil that festers below without mercy or hesitation. Our half-track leads a convoy of armed vehicles penetrating deep into the heart of darkness. Soon there will come a reckoning. Billings leans close so I can hear his raspy voice over the engine roar. Remember, conserve ammunition. Wait for clear shots, its flesh is thick as armor. And avoid close combat at all costs. I nod, sweat-slick hands white-knuckle gripping my rifle. Reloading with fumbling fingers, I stare into the void yawning before us. Whatever abominable deeds were committed here, their legacy ends tonight in fire and blood. Our convoy reaches the first choke point location with a squeal of brakes. The LT's transport pulls up alongside. First squads dismount, his voice crackles through portable radios. Clear the east tunnels toward target area. Billings hops down, shotgun ready. With me. Lethal force authorized. We fall in behind him double time. The other fire teams soon peel off to their own objectives, disappearing into the maze until just our squad remains. We descend single file into cramped access tunnels rarely tread by man. Rats scurry away from our flashlight beams. The sounds of the convoy fade, leaving just the echo of dripping water and the rasp of tense breathing. The flashlight affixed to Billings' shotgun paints the walls ahead in shifting shadows. Each shape looks like ragged claws poised to tear into flesh. I wipe sweat from my eyes and force measured breaths, fingers caressing the rifle's cold comfort. We're the flushers now, drive the evil to the guns. The tunnel opens into a series of derelict store chambers. Rusting drums and crates loom out of the dark. We clear each room in textbook fashion, moving deeper toward the central complex. A distant bellow rolls down the corridors, the creature knows we are coming. The hairs on my neck stand rigid. Through deserted mess halls and barracks we push, past relics of those who served this sinister cause. Everything covered in decades of dust and cobwebs like a long-sealed tomb. But in the shadows, ancient evil stirs from slumber. The hunt is on. Approaching the laboratory sector, we proceed with greater caution. The lieutenant's voice crackles through the radio. Recon units are in position around the central chamber with interlocking fields of fire. We are to drive the target toward their guns at all costs. The pristine white tiles of the lab wing gleam in our flashlight beams. Stains of various hues smear the walls and floors. I try not to imagine their origins. We just need to keep pushing forward. Room by room, hall by hall, no place for it to hide. Then, a blood-curdling howl echoes from just ahead, followed by crashing metal and shattered glass. It knows we are close. Billings points forward, teeth bared with obsession. We advance faster, safety off and rounds chambered. The demon will have nowhere left to run soon enough. More primal roars and sounds of rampage carry down the corridor as we close in. Entering a specimen lab, we find shattered containment cages and savaged remains scattered about. The creature is in a frenzy trying to elude the approaching end, but the traps are set. Escape is futile. We bypass operating theaters caked in layers of coagulated gore from procedures best left unimagined. All that matters now is reaching our target before it can evade the barrage. Billings motions us flat against a wall as an ear-splitting screech reverberates ahead. Now. We sprint around the corner with guns leveled. Flashlights reveal a massive central laboratory ripped to shreds, examination tables overturned, instruments scattered, great gouges clawed into the very walls. At the far end looms a gigantic metal door hanging askew, the way beyond choked with tangles of severed cables. Escape is cut off. The creature writhes across the room, smashing anything it can reach in blind rage. Froth drips from its deformed maw as muscles ripple beneath matted fur. Yellow eyes burn with primal fury at our arrival. Its nightmare ends here and now. Spotlights suddenly blaze through a high window facing the central hub, pinning the creature's center mass. It shields its face and howls as interlaced gunfire rips from all sides. The beast staggers under the barrage but stays upright, flesh cratered but not pierced. I brace and fire off tight bursts, sacrificing accuracy for volume. Shell casings clatter around my boots. The creature regains balance and charges right at us, moving freakishly fast despite its size. Billings stands firm, blasting away with his shotgun until click-click. No effect. I fire desperately but claws are meters away as the shotgun is torn from Billings' grip. He grabs futilely for a sidearm but the thing is already upon him. I scream and lunge forward. A massive claw swipes and Billings is ripped clean in half lengthwise before my eyes. Hot blood sprays across my face. The upper torso and head hit the floor with a sickening thud, intestines spilling out. The other half lands nearby, one leg still twitching. Bile and rage surge in my throat but before I can even comprehend the horror, a savage blow hurls me sideways and the world goes black. I awake to acrid gun smoke burning my nostrils. Muzzle flashes strobe through the haze as shouts mix with inhuman wails. Bodies and wreckage litter the ground. I push up unsteadily, head pounding. The creature thrashes wildly as converging squads close in firing on full auto. It knows the end is here. Suddenly the beast charges the massive door, smashing through in an explosion of broken steel. The passage beyond is not blocked. It claws onwards, rounds sparking off armor like flesh. Fire teams rush to give chase but are hampered by the mangled doorway. The creature escapes their encirclement. I watch in dazed dismay as our prize prey vanishes once more into the boundless darkness. But the hunt is not done. Blood pounds in my ears as I stare at the mangled door where our quarry eluded us. So close to finally ending this nightmare, only for it to slip through our grasp into the cavernous maze. But the chase must go on. Staggering through the ravaged lab I find a dropped rifle and wrench it from rigid, half-severed fingers. The weapon feels heavy and unfamiliar in my hands. All I want is to collapse in exhaustion, but duty calls me forward. Billings' torn corpse lies sprawled nearby, crusted gore spread in a great halo. Dead eyes seem to bore into me, asking why I failed him. I choke down bile and turn away from the grim sight. Now is not the time for doubt or grief. The other men shout and point at the yawning vent shaft the creature disappeared into. Frag grenades are fetched from packs and thrown down the narrow duct, blasting chunks of concrete in hopes of collapsing its escape route. But the shaft remains open, the darkness beckoning us into the unknown. The LT is already barking orders, wave after wave now consumed by obsession. We will scour every inch of this hellhole until we corner our prey once more. No rest, no hesitation. The convoy lumbers to life again, headlamps spearing the gloom of the maze. Onward we delve. Chamber after chamber, our search parties comb through with ruthless efficiency now. Any lingering evil shall be purged without mercy. We find scattered gore, abandoned experiments, endless shadows, but no signs of the creature. It lurks ahead mocking us, but there is no turning back until the job is done. The sporadic staccato of gunfire carries through the ancient corridors. Seeking, flushing. The rats flee and malformed things shrivel from light, but we do not waver in our crusade. Twisted evidence lines the walls of the hubris once practiced here in the name of racial superiority. Never again. Howling echoes from distant corners, but gone by the time we arrive. The beast knows we will never relent. The chase turns desperate now on both sides. It seeks the surface, the freedom of the forest. We seek its obliteration, drive it down to the very roots of hell. Kill or be killed. Passing the infirmary, we find only gore-caked bandages and spent shell casings on cold tile floors. The wounded and dying were evacuated topside long ago. All that remains below now are the hunters and hunted, perpetrators and avengers. There is no more innocence, no hesitation on either side. Pushing through a nexus point, we hear screams and gunshots from one of the tunnels. Two mangled bodies in shredded fatigues are dragged back out. They barely look human anymore in the harsh flashlight beams. Jaws clench, nerves steeled. The hunt continues. How long we prowl those putrid depths I cannot say. Time becomes meaningless, measured only in feet marched and shells expended. Through abandoned barracks and guard posts we sweep, past iron cells and rusted chains bolted to dank stone. All empty. Always a step behind vanishing footprints in the dust. Until finally we emerge into a cavernous space unlike any seen before. Our flashlight beams are swallowed by the vastness as they pierce the stale air. Some ancient ceremonial hall perhaps, pillars carved with pagan runes loom overhead and demonic faces leer from the walls. And far across the shadowed void, two yellow eyes flare in hatred and defiance. Nowhere left to run. The creature's guttural growl echoes through the expansive chamber. All light sources converge on it, revealing the extent of its injuries: cratered flesh, exposed sinew and bone, formatted with oozing wounds. Yet still it stands defiant, ready to fight to the bitter end. As are we. The lieutenant's voice cracks over the radio. All teams converge on target. Overwhelming fire on my command. Soldiers rush into flanking positions, their footsteps swallowed by the vastness. I join a squad taking cover behind massive pillars, sighting down trembling rifle barrels. The creature eyes us with hellish rage, waiting to strike. Steady. The lieutenant calls. My finger caresses the trigger. Ready. I block out all thought of fear or doubt, focusing only on the rifle's deadly potential. One way or another, this ends now. Fire. A wall of lead erupts towards the creature, tracer rounds streaking through the gloom. It convulses as the fusillade shreds flesh down to the bone. Dark blood spurts, but still it will not fall. A primal roar shakes the ancient stones. Reload and fire at will. Another withering hail of gunfire batters the writhing beast. It staggers back under the assault, chunks of meat blasting free. My rifle bucks relentlessly against my shoulder, barrel glowing red. Empty casings rain around us. The creature drops to all fours, shrieking furiously. Then with deceptive speed it charges directly at our position, snarling jaws agape. Men dive for cover, screaming curses as it nears. I brace against a pillar and resume firing. It soaks up rounds as if immune to pain and damage, driven only by pure savagery. Claws gouge the stone floor, propelling it recklessly into withering fire. My rifle clicks empty. I fumble a new clip with slick, shaking fingers. The thing bears down on us, hellfire eyes burning with hate. 10 yards away. 5. I slam the clip home and resume firing just as massive claws lash out. Talons meant for my neck instead rake the pillar inches from my face as the brute hurtles past into the squad beyond. Its hideous maw clamps down on a soldier's leg as he tries to crawl away. With a violent shake of its neck, the leg is ripped from the man's body in a spray of crimson. His scream chokes off as the creature pounces to finish the job. More men empty round after round point blank, but still it battles on, consumed by frenzy. From all sides the squads close in, leaving no room for escape. A soldier with a flamethrower scorches the thing's back, eliciting an ungodly wail. It writhes and snaps madly, but is surrounded now on all sides. Rifle stocks and bayonets smash against its charred flesh. The blows gradually overwhelm the fury. I watch in shock as the beast is finally beaten down by the mass of bodies and sheer weight of firepower. It thrashes weakly in a spreading pool of black blood, howling, fading to pitiful mewls. Slowly the violence wanes as it slumps into a ragged heap of torn meat and matted fur, barely heaving for each breath. Cease fire. The LT's voice rings out. Silence returns to the cavernous chamber except the creature's gurgling death rattle. The men encircle it warily, some clutching wounds of their own. We did it. We survived. It's over now. Rifles raise for the coup de grace. The lieutenant steps through the crowd, pistol aimed squarely at the thing's skull. His face is stone. Rot in hell, monster. The shot thunders through the vast chamber. The creature convulses one final time, then lies still forevermore. I stare down at the lifeless mass of fur and ravaged flesh, feeling nothing. No elation at victory. No remorse over its suffering. Just hollow emptiness where purpose once burned. The men mutter oaths and mingle in exhausted camaraderie. Some kick the corpse, expressing primal rage or mere curiosity. Others laugh and cry in equal measure, the tension released as death's shadow lifts. They relish survival. But for me, only uncertainty remains. What awaits us now with the crusade's end? When we surface beneath forest skies, what world awaits? Too long have we dwelt in nightmare darkness with singular purpose. But the light of day reveals complex paths, choices not dictated by primal needs. I fear that world may blind me. The lieutenant conveys orders over the radio. Establish perimeter security, then muster all surviving personnel. Assess casualties and evacuate remains. Leave no trace of our presence. The trucks idle impatiently above, ready to ferry us from this charnel subterrane. Billings' torn body lies discarded in the ravaged laboratory amidst jagged metal and coagulating gore. I kneel and gently close his remaining eyelid. A soldier must have attempted to retrieve him, only to abandon the effort when blooded by combat. I cannot carry these remains alone, but swear to someday return if able. For now, this will have to serve as requiem. The convoy rumbles up the winding tunnel towards daylight, exhaust fumes mixing with the stench of blood and fear sweat. We pass shadowy relics of a bygone regime laid bare by battle. Twisted legacies toppled by sustained violence. I ride in silence, letting the diesel vibration massage my rigid spine. Emerging into hazy afternoon sunshine, we breathe air untainted by corruption, ancient and modern. Birds sing heedless in the trees above our roaring engines. Soon we will leave this cursed place behind, returning if at all only in nightmare visions. I envy the carefree wildlife, knowing no such lingering horror. The village appears just as we left it, faded and sagging but infinitely welcoming compared to the void below. A few curious faces peer from broken windows at our battered procession. They cannot imagine the nightmares we carried back from the abyss. Some will call us heroes. I feel anything but. Finding only weariness and grief, I occupy myself assisting the medics. I apply pressure where directed to seeping wounds, fetch bandages and splints, make the wounded as comfortable as possible. Simple actions requiring neither complex thought nor emotions beyond care for a fellow sufferer. It helps pass the hours until our world irrevocably changes once again. Dusk finds us lined up at attention for final inspection, uniforms torn and stained but postures rigid from pure exhaustion. The lieutenant thanks us for persevering through abject horror in service of final victory over tyrannical evil. I stand numb as he promises commendations and shiny medals soon to adorn loyal chests. We endured hell itself, but I now wonder to what end. A rumbling on the road heralds the supply trucks arriving to rearm and refuel us. But they bear an unexpected cargo, fresh troops to relieve our ravaged ranks. The new men gaze about in awe at our battered forms just returned from regions infernal. They cannot yet grasp what awaits down below. I envy their innocence. The lieutenant grants us leave from further duties fighting this evil. We relinquish weapons and kit to new hands eager to test untested courage. Boarding empty transports, we abandon the fresh zealots to their trials ahead. Ours has ended. Theirs is just dawning. As we rumble into the fading light, I watch new flashes and hear faint cacophonies rise from the cursed void we escaped. The young crusaders believe they march to cleanse evil's festering root. But they chase only shadows in the dark, as endless as the night itself.